greet our friends everywhere with Chapter 11 of For Such a Time as This, the story of Charles Finney. This is another in the series, Stories of Great Christians, and comes to you from the radio studios of the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago. The spring of 1825 found Charles Finney on the slippery mud road to Whitestown, New York. It had been 6 months since he had seen his new bride, and even the hundreds of conversions that had come from his winter in Brownville began to pale in his mind at the thoughts of his Lydia. He had ridden about 15 miles with some difficulty when his horse lost his footing and...
Oh, what a mess. All this mud... Oh, come on. It's my fault, I suppose. Should have had those shoes changed before I left Brownville. A smooth-shod horse can't manage all this mud. Neither can I. Yes, I know. You need new shoes. Well, looks like there's a town up ahead there. As soon as I collect some of these belongings you dumped all over creation, we'll see what we can do about fixing you up.
There now, my boy'll have those shoes ready and your horse faster than you can say how foolish it was trying to ride these spring roads the way you did.
I appreciate that. I suppose I was in too much of a hurry to get back to my wife.
Oh, that's on the unusual side. I've seen many a man in too much of a hurry to get away from his wife, but...
Well, I've been away all winter.
Hey, come up from Evans Mills way?
That's where we'll be settling when I bring her back. But I've been in Brownville for a while.
Brownville? Yeah. You were there when all that ruckus took place, weren't you, huh?
Ruckus?
Yeah, all them people suddenly getting religion, running around screaming. The way I hear it, you couldn't get near Brownville without God himself grabbing at your coattails.
Oh, is that what you've heard?
Yeah, you was up there. You ought to know. They say some preacher by the name of Finney came into town. Before you know it, taverns are having prayer meetings and the rich are entertaining the poor to dinner. Ain't that right?
Some of what you say is true, yes.
Strictly between you and me. That's what this here town of Lee Rayville needs.
What?
A religious turning. If that fella Finney ever came through here, he'd have enough to keep him busy for 10 years. He could start at the local magistrate and move right down.
To the local blacksmith?
Well, to tell you the truth, if I ever saw a religion that really worked, made a man really a good man, I'd think mighty long and hard about it. Hey, I might have been speaking way out of turn with you, mister.
What do you mean?
Well, maybe you was one who was revived up there in Brownville.
Better than that.
Huh?
The name is Finney. Charles Finney.
Coming. Charles. Oh, I'm sorry the doctor isn't here right now.
You Mrs. Finney?
Yes? Why?
I come to get you.
What?
It's all right, ma'am. Mr. Finney's up in Rayville, a few days' ride from here. He was on his way to get you.
Has he been hurt?
Oh, no, ma'am. Some of the folks asked him to preach while he was waiting to have his horse reshod. And he's been having meetings ever since. There's lots of folks getting converted, and he just can't leave. So he sent me to fetch you.
I'll be ready in 15 minutes.
No, hold on, ma'am. I brung a wagon. Mr. Finney, he says to pack everything on account of your going up to Evans Mills right after he finishes up in Rayville.
All right. I'll be ready in 20 minutes.
Huh. Whole family's on the unusual side.
Now, I hope this room will be comfortable, Mrs. Finney.
It's just fine, Judge.
Yes, fine.
And if there's anything you need, you be sure and holler.
We'll let you know.
I hope you will, Mr. Finney, because we owe you more than we could ever repay with this little gesture.
Oh, you don't owe me a thing, Judge. We'll be down for supper.
We do owe you, Mr. Finney. Why, in the few days you've been here, so many of us, myself included, have come to an... You all right, Mrs. Finney?
The long trip has tired her out, Judge. Perhaps if she could just rest for a few minutes?
Why, of course. Perhaps we could continue our little conversation downstairs.
Oh.
I think I'd better stay here with my wife.
Well, whatever you think is best... We'll give a shout up the stairs when it's time to eat.
Fine.
Unless, of course, you'd like to have something set up. Perhaps Mrs. Finney's not feeling well enough.
I'll be fine if I can rest a bit.
Well, then I'll be going.
Yes, good.
Till later, Mrs. Finney.
Till later, Judge.
Till later, Mr. Finney.
Yes, thank you, Judge.
Oh, Charles.
Oh, Lydia.
Oh, darling.
Oh, my darling. Dearest.
I thought he'd never go.
He means well.
Oh, Charles. Oh, it's been so long.
I know. You're here. Not a letter. You.
I thought such awful things.
My fault.
No.
But you're...
Mine, Charles.
But you're really here. I'm really holding you.
It's better than those hundreds of dreams I had like this.
Yes. Look at us. Standing still, dressed for the chilly spring.
Yes. Look at us.
Here, let me help you off with your shawl.
Oh, Charles,
Yes?
The missus thought Mrs. Finney ought to see where the linen was, just in case you might like to freshen up before dinner.
Oh, all right, Judge. I'll be right there. Charles, I may burn this house down before we get a chance to stay here.
That's better. A good meal and the glow of a fireplace certainly takes the edge off a chilly spring night.
Yes.
I must say that both of you look better after your rest this afternoon. You look more relaxed than I've ever seen you, Mr. Finney.
It's been a relaxing day.
This young man of yours works harder than any lawyer I've ever seen, Mrs. Finney.
Charles was a lawyer when God called him.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's so. Well, that explains a great deal.
Oh?
Yes, of course. The way you preach, the way you, shall we say, present the Lord's case.
I have thought of it that way, sir.
I'm sure you have. Why, certainly it all makes sense.
I really feel I should be helping your wife.
Now you just sit where you are, Mrs. Finney. You've had a long trip, and there'll be plenty of chances to help after you're more rested.
Yes, sir.
A lawyer, huh? Well, it all makes perfectly good sense. No wonder you convinced me, being a judge and all.
God convinced you, Judge, not me.
I know. He seems to be after me all the time now.
Oh?
This house, the finest in the town, you know.
I know.
But you know how I got this house? How I got this fine property? Or how I get most of what I have?
Yes.
You do?
Sir, I'm afraid your reputation preceded you.
Yes, I'm sure it did. And I'm equally sure that there are many in this town who don't believe my turning to Jesus Christ was genuine.
Yes, sir, there's been little to convince them.
Oh, Finney, I like you. Most folks would be frightened out of a year's growth to talk to me the way you do. Fact is, most ministers would be frightened to talk to a congregation the way you do. But you do it. Sinners aren't they and them. You call a spade, and a sinner, and you make your case.
Yes, and there are many who resent it, but they come back to hear more.
And they're finally caught. That's what happened to me. And that's why I have a lot to do. A lot that'll be hard to do.
Like what, sir?
Well, I have to give a great many things back to people from whom I've stolen. Does that shock you, Mrs. Finney? I'm sorry. My stealing has all been very subtle, deciding cases this way or that in return for favors, letting certain friends know when a foreclosure was about to take place, then sharing the profits, that sort of thing. Well, I'm afraid I've built quite an empire in this little town. Then you came, Mr. Finney, and took the foundation stone out.
I'm glad, Judge.
I hope your husband is as honest with you as he is with the rest of us, Mrs. Finney.
I don't know, Judge.
Oh, you don't know?
No, sir. In the 6 months we've been married, I've been with him a little over a day and a half. This porch is a lot like the one at home.
A little chilly, huh?
I feel warm.
You're funny.
No, Charles, I'm frightened, little.
Why?
When I see how important you're becoming, how everyone seems to open up to you. Oh, Charles, I hope I'm not a disappointment.
You?
Yes, I mean it. Charles, God is doing things through you that have never been done before. The way people are stricken with their sin. Mm-hmm. The way so many turn to Jesus at a time. It's frightening. And I don't know what I have to do with it all.
I understand, dear. Somehow, God has singled out my ministry. I don't know why. Frightens me, too. But then I'm only one small man in backwoods towns. There's probably many other preachers all over this big, wild country doing the same thing. Don't fret, dear. I'll never be what you'd call a famous man. And I'll always need that dimple. Right there. To come home to.
And so we conclude Chapter 11 of For Such a Time as This, the story of Charles Finney. This is another in the series, Stories of Great Christians, and comes to you from the radio studios of the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago.